After a rough start, the Yankees are still in first place. The Mets still are inconsistent and want to make their fans go nuts. We have a little bit of a Pete Alonso trade talk discussion and a little bit of a celebrity appearance when it comes to the Otani situation. Plenty more in episode 3 of the Black Diamond podcast. That was a lot better. Full disclosure to everyone, I did a cold open, and when you do a cold open on StreamYard, you once you press end recording, you just can't go back and restart. So I had to start a new one. So welcome everyone to the second part of episode 3 of the Black Diamond podcast. I am Matty T, one of half of your co-hosts, and I'm joined by my very gracious and very patient co-host, Chris. How are we doing tonight?
I'm doing good. We got through the whole. You know, uh, growing pains, I guess you could call them. The Yankees are about to win this game officially. They just won. Yordan Alvarez flew out. So Yankees are beating the piss out of the Astros. Life is pretty good right now. I did hear some rumors that our corporate overlords might be wanting to change the name of this podcast because I guess the elephant in the room is that that we're two white guys, and that doesn't really make sense for two white guys to be hosting the Black Diamond podcast. So next time you hear from us, we might be like the White Bullpen podcast or something. But we'll see what we'll see what the Ascension Podcast Network decides to do with us.
Yeah, I mean, we're just the plug-in players, the glue guys. You put us in there, and we'll make it work. So whatever corporate comes down on us, we'll happily oblige and follow.
Yeah, we'll take it all in stride. But yeah, no, it's good to be here for episode 3, and I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, awesome. So definitely we could get into it starting from these past couple of days. And before we get into it, if you see the ticker below, it has all of the places that you could follow us, the podcast network that we work for, MI Pod, Ascension Podcast Network, and both of our personal handles, even though Chris will tell you do not follow. And also go on our YouTube channel, Black Diamond Podcast 1, like and subscribe. And, we appreciate you for showing up and watching these videos.
Yeah, you can actually you can follow me if you want to. I'll leave that up to I'll leave that up to the user's discretion. But definitely follow the other handles down there. Definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. All that stuff helps out tremendously. So that's like what really matters. And then if you wanna follow me for the occasional unhinged tweets or whatever, leave that up to you.
Yes, I'm sure as the season goes on and playoff races become hot or the trade deadline, anything like that, our personal and the Black Diamond podcast accounts are definitely going to start heating up. And then also when it collides with our New York Jets and football season, I'm sure there'll be severely unhinged tweets that are.
That's usually the peak of unhingedness. Usually during baseball, I try to at least be semi-reasonable, just because like Yankees Twitter is just such a toxic place as it is. Like I don't really, they're like toxic enough. Like I'm always down to get toxic. When it comes down to it, but I feel like that's just such a toxic place that really doesn't need like my toxic contributions. So I generally try to keep it like mild mannered when it comes to baseball. But yeah. The best is yet to come.
Yeah, and I think that's why we work so well. We're part, of our fan bases. We're more of the level-headed. So I mean, I'm in a Mets Twitter fantasy league, so obviously we have a big Twitter group chat, and the ebbs and flows of just one game is something where I just, I pop up on the end. Hey guys, we'll get them tomorrow, or hey guys, we're gonna go on a winning streak. I don't let the there's always tomorrow. That's the great thing about baseball.
That's true. Do they do they usually respond well to you when they say that, or they like ask you if you're on drugs?
They do look to me as someone, to calm and ease the nerves, because I think a perfect example was yesterday. Um, I think they were down immediately, like 3-0 after the first inning, because and someone they were just like, "This is depressing." Jose Budo just doesn't have it tonight, and I'm just like, "Yeah, but he had it for like the last couple of starts. This is just what's going to happen." Like, and also, since the bats have been absolutely like dog water this entire season, consistency wise, like unless they score more than one run, like the games are not going to be competitive. And then last night they ironically ended up coming back and winning the game and taking the series, since today was rained out. But my theory is you got to score to win games. So if you give up 3 runs, like it's not the end of the world to me, especially if you're not scoring runs. So it's just, I've tempered my expectations when it comes to the Mets. We've talked about this on our initial podcast coming into the season, and it's kind of reflected that so far. I mean, they're 18 and 18, 36 games in, so they're exactly where I thought they would be.
Yeah, yeah, they're pretty much right on schedule, I would say, and I think it's you kind of you kind of expected the you kind of expected the ebbs and flows with their offense. Like I think you kind of knew that they weren't gonna they weren't gonna hold up like all year, be like the 1927 Yankees or anything like that. So they're obviously they're going through some ebbs and flows and some struggles there. But pitching's holding up. So the pitching's holding up, and they're still winning games and staying afloat. So I wouldn't hit the panic button in Flushing just yet.
Yeah, and I think that's the ever, evolving question. Would you rather your team just put up a bunch of runs and that would be exciting, obviously, but then but you still lose, that your pitching's getting smashed. So a perfect example was on Friday. And I guess that we could just get into the Mets first right away. So if we date back to when they got swept on Friday, this past weekend against the Rays, they had a 10-8 shootout. And so, would you rather one of those games where you're putting up a bunch of runs, but your pitcher can't hold a lead and you end up losing 10-8, or would you rather a game, game 3 this week against Chicago, where Sevy has a no hitter going into the 8th inning, gives up 1 run over 8 innings, and they end up losing 1-0. And I think for me personally, I think when you're pitching gives you a chance to stay in the game consistently, I would rather that, because it just you're always just one swing away, and I would rather that than you're throwing your arms out there and you just like there's no way that they're gonna stop the lineup, that and these hitters, because I think at the end of the game when you close it out, you'd rather have that that security blanket, that secure feeling that you're going to close it out once you have the lead.
Yeah, definitely. And not to sound like not to sound like the baseball version of Jude right now, but as much as the high scoring, like, barn burner 10 to 8 type of games, as much as they could be more fun to watch than like a good pitcher's duel, I would be like kind of more encouraged, like scraping out like a 2-1 or 2-0 win over that, just because, like, if and when you do get to the playoffs, that's kind of more likely what the type of games you're gonna be in, because you're gonna be facing like the best pitchers in your league, in route to try and make a run in the playoffs. So I would say that, while the 10 to 8 game might be a more fun experience and more fun to watch in the moment, I would have, like, in the long term, I would be more encouraged to see them like scrape out like a, like a 1-0, 2-0, 3-1 type of win, where where it's, the pitchers are going back and forth, and you get a big hit late that that puts you ahead and gives you a win. Because when you do get to the playoffs, that's the kind of baseball that you got to play.
Yeah, and you can't simulate high leverage situations. So like you get them where they are during the season, and you're going to have the same hitters going out every single day. So they're always going to have another opportunity in a high leverage situation to come in clutch. When your pitching staff, whether it's the starter or any of your relievers that come in, that's going to vary on a day-to-day basis, since they're not going to be, on the mound on a consistent basis. So you rather have those high leverages for the pitchers as often as you can, and see them succeed, and then hopefully that the bats eventually wake up, and then it all starts clicking, which it's not doing right now. It did the past couple of days against the Cardinals. Thankfully it looked like Lindor, Pete finally heating up, but I think for me that's the silver lining of the Mets season so far. I think it looks like the pitching, especially this bullpen that they built, is definitely able to, um, you know, consistently get out of high leverage situations. You just always give your team a chance, and that's all you can ask for. Especially like you said, when every single game, especially when it's coming this weekend, starting with the Braves leaking into the Phillies, these divisional games are going to matter, and they're always going to be very tight.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would say, like, as long as I'm not sure what happened, but I saw I know the Mets won yesterday, but I saw that people were like freaking out over something Ottavino did. I don't know if you have anything to add on that, or if he, like, I think he just like left the pitch like over the
Yeah,
plate
right
really
down the
badly or
middle.
something.
Yeah, he left it right down the middle. Yeah, he didn't locate it. And Ottavino is, unless it's a sweeper, which he'll even admit he has no idea where his sweeper's going. Like half the times where he's throwing it, his fastball, if it's not generating movement, it's basically like a hitter's dream. It's going to go right down the middle, 93 to 94 tops, and that was the situation last night to Newt and well, actually, a funny quote from Gary Cohen was saying when Lars Nootbaar, when he grows up, is going to turn into Salamander or something like that. I don't know. There's some weird thing. The Mets group chat was talking about how that was just like one of the weirdest names that's in the MLB. But besides that, yeah. So
So he was going to turn into a salamander, or like the salamander,
I
or
guess
just salamander.
I guess it was a Salamander. They're between that, and I guess you know tightening my legs for another save situation
Yeah.
with Ottavino out there when he doesn't know where his pitches are going.
They must
Yeah,
have.
but
He must have been hanging out with his teammates from the '86 team before the game or something.
yeah, no, that's what it seems
To
like.
be
And
saying that.
definitely a lot of those Midwest trips, you'll get some late night quotes out of that Mets crew for sure.
Oh yeah, they definitely get delirious. I think it was on a West Coast trip where Keith started to like contemplate his life last year, where he's like I wake up early every morning because I truly don't know like how much time I have left.
they were they were literally talking about yesterday. He was saying how he went to like 17 Super Bowls in his life, and he like has all the tickets, and they were just like, whoa, like where are they? He goes, I don't know, they're probably like in the basement or draw somewhere. And he goes, well, like, have you, he's like, maybe I'll sell them. He's like, I don't know, like I'll never know, like maybe I'll go broke one day. And I was just like, I was like, and then it was like, and that's ball too. So it's the
Yeah.
casual flow conversation of baseball.
Yeah, they do that really well. I mean, I'd say they're the best. They're the best. They're the best like broadcast team in baseball for a reason. It's just crazy like how much better they are than anyone else. Like they could be talking about that, or like they could be making fun of like. I love the one where they were like they were playing the Giants, I think, and like there were like all these dudes on like a boat in the Covey Cove, and like they were like they were like dancing, like very poorly, very poorly coordinated white people dancing, like trying to hit on women, and I think Keith was just like, yeah, whatever they're doing, I don't think it's working.
Yeah, I think I feel like I've been blessed with them. It's definitely been great during those Wilpon piss poor years for sure. And
Yeah,
I think one of the greatest things, I guess, last thing before I have to unfortunately talk about my Mets, is that I love how Keith he just refuses to go on any road trips when they play the Phillies now because his big thing is that he hates terrible defense and bad fundamentals. So he just refuses to go to Philadelphia trips anymore because he hates watching them play defense.
yeah. They have some pretty bad defenders. Like Nick Castellanos, doesn't matter what world events are going on, is pretty bad. Nationals just tied the Orioles, so that's good for me. But
Oh, that's huge. And I think the
yes,
Braves are beating I mean, bad for the Mets, but great for the Yankees. I think the Braves were up 5-0, and I last checked
yeah,
against the Red Sox.
yep, I believe that is correct. But yeah, I know Nick Castellanos' defense is pretty bad. Harper isn't he's not like a great defender. Yeah, they really don't have anyone that's very like sound defensively. But I respect, I respect his dedication. Like I mean, I think we'd all love to be able to tell our jobs like, yeah, there's just like these like 12 days out of the year we're just not showing up because we're not fucking dealing with that.
You gotta love it. I mean, I guess once you're a World Series champion and one of the color commentator for the team that you won a World Series for, and then you have the third leg, which is Ron Darling, just to sub in for you. I think it's the perfect opportunity and scenario for Keith to bow out there.
They can poach Ron from the TBS broadcast for a couple of series out of the year.
Yeah, I sure I forgot that he does TBS as well,
Yeah.
and they have him for the postseason. So usually, I guess he's kind of working his way up, but
Yeah. So does
still
Keith still do my bad, does Keith still do home games against the Phillies or just like the road
yes.
games?
Actually, you know what? We're gonna find out when we record next week's episode, which is gonna come around the same time, either Tuesday or Wednesday. They have a 4-game set against the Phillies. That's when we'll find out if he took it to another extreme, which is not not doing home games for them, uh,
Something to
which would be
monitor for sure.
exactly definitely for that. But until we get there, I'll give a quick recap. Um, I would say definitely a very uninspiring but eventful week for the Mets. Started off with a 4-game series against the Chicago Cubs. Once again, their pitching was leading the way. Game one was one of the situations where Sevy was going into the 8th inning with a no hitter. Ended up giving up just one run, and they end up losing that game. Edwin Diaz had a blown save. Um, so not much for that. So the good thing about that series was you had Sevy go 8 innings, 1 run. Manaya went 5 innings, 1 run. Budo 6 innings, 1 run. And you can see the common theme since they split the series 2-2. The bats weren't hot until game 4 of the series. Pete Alonso absolutely struggling with runners runners in scoring position, not on base. No matter what it is, it just seems like he's going up there with no plan right now. Same with Jeff McNeil. It was good to see Nimmo hit an absolute nuke. Um, in game 1 of that series. Um, what one of the besides the hitting and the runners in scoring position situation that was going with the Mets, one of the other situations that became very alarming was Edwin Diaz. Edwin Diaz had a blown save where he through, I think, 19 pitches, and they said 16 of them were a slider, which tells you that he was not trusting his fastball. It wasn't command wise. I think it was the amount of not only velocity but electricity that he was getting behind it. There was no movement. There was no kind of oomph. So the biggest thing is when a hitter goes up there and they know exactly what you're throwing, it becomes very predictable, and that's where he was able to get teed up a couple of times uh, against Chicago. I mean, I thought that they could take 3 out of 4 from them. They ended up splitting, but another big eventful controversy from that series was a 1-0 loss. No, it was game one when they lost 3-1. It was tied at 1-1. Um, no, game three. It was 1-0, and so there was Pete Alonso was on third, bottom of the ninth. Um, JD Martinez, no, Jeff McNeil hits it into left field. Pete Alonso tags up, and he's initially called out. And so there's two facets to the situation, and we're going back to last week where we talked about how the umps were absolutely terrible. Um, so Pete Alonso, it looked like he got there in time, but when you looked at the video evidence, his left hand when he was sliding went up, and his wrist actually didn't touch the plate. So he ended up getting tagged simultaneously as his wrist and hand went down. But the bigger controversy was that the new rule that was implemented last year is that a catcher can't, before the
Block
ball is
your
thrown,
path, right?
you can't block the path. And by blocking the path, it's not only like standing in front of the plate, but he can't have his foot directly on the plate down the baseline, which he did to a T. So Mendoza not only was challenging Pete being safe, which was iffy. If he was called safe on the field, I think they would have called safe on the replay, but he was clearly blocking the base path, something that the Mets got called on a few weeks back. And going into the replay, the umpires and the MLB replay network said, no, he was good. So the Mets ended up losing a game 1-0 because of that, which was absolutely horseshit. So um, going into last week, we're just saying the umps are making it more and more difficult not to find something new and different for them
Yeah.
to replace them.
Yeah, I feel like that's just probably gonna be a conversation until they eventually do inevitably get replaced, because that seems like the direction that we're heading in right now. Yeah, I kind of forgot that happened, but yeah, I remember I saw that. I kind of saw people on Twitter, losing their shit over that, and from watching the replay, like I kind of, blocking or not, like he kind of just looked safe to me.
He did. That's why I thought if they called him safe on the field, I think they would have called him safe if the Cubs were to challenge that. But it
Right.
was weird. Like he slid in. First of all, what happened to just like sliding in with your feet first? I mean, I feel like that should be the way to go. I guess people want to do the Javi Baez where they do like the swim move and like be able
Yeah.
to manipulate their hand. But the issue is he slid in so hard. Pete's like a big guy that his fingertips and his hands came up and they went over the plate. And then so by the time it came down, that's when the tag hit him. And that's where like you could be like, well, if you want to be technical, yeah, he was out, even though it was bang bang.
Yeah, it was just a bang bang play, and they probably just didn't see enough. They probably just didn't see enough there to necessarily overturn the call. But I think that with like, and I'm all for I'm all for replay and getting the calls right, but I think baseball is getting a little too ticky tacky with it, and it's like kind of becoming a little too much like the NFL. Like, oh, did he have control of the baseball? Was the ball entering his glove with his foot on the bag before the runner's foot? It's just like all these like moving parts, and I don't know. I just think it's getting a little too ticky tacky. Or one thing I really despise about like replay in baseball is like when like you slide into say you slide into like second base and you're safe, and then they'll hold the tag, and then like if you like take your foot off the bag for like a millisecond, they'll review it and then call you out. Like I get it, technically you're out, but that's like not what that I don't think that's like what they had in mind,
No, that's not
when
what
they
the rule
tried
is
to
made
implement
for.
it.
Yeah, that's not what the rule was made for. Like, yeah, end of game. You're tagging up from third base to home. Okay, you take as much time as you want because that like closes the game. But like once you're looking like the fact now is that we're giving these guys who we don't trust. That's why we went to replay because we don't
Right.
trust them. Now we're going into the replay center and giving them the authority for certain plays to challenge, and then it's up to their interpretation. So it was up to their interpretation that the catcher wasn't blocking the plate, but literally they sent out a memo with the exact like structure and picture of the catcher doing what he did that night. And that's exactly what he did. And what the greatest thing is that the replay center said that the home plate umpire has the authority to call catcher's interference before even replay. So not only did
And that's like
he
unchallengeable, right? Like
no,
the
you can
calling.
challenge it.
Oh,
So
you
he
can.
challenged. So there was two challenges: Pete being safe, catcher's interference. So not only did the ump get the call wrong of not the first ump got the call wrong in bang bang, catcher blocking the plate, but then they did the replay and then they still doubled down and said that okay, he still wasn't blocking the plate when his foot was clearly on the plate, which is why Pete had to move his hand.
Yeah, not to mention like I feel like these umpires they have like such like they have such big egos that like like unless it's like very clear and blatant, they're not going to admit that they're wrong. Like if they think it's like close, like they might realize like oh they might have been onto something, but like they're not just gonna admit that. And like I mean like the umpiring it's just such a shit show. I mean like Aaron Judge got ejected for the first time on I think it was Sunday, basically because I mean it was a terrible call. It was like I mean Aaron Judge's strike zone since he came into the league has always been pretty horseshit and very inconsistent. Like across the board with umpires. Like it's something they just haven't been able to get right. But it was one of those typical like 6 inches off the plate, like below his knees type of pitches that they call the strike, and all he really did was he just turned to the ump and he was just like, "Oh come on, man, like that's bullshit," and then like he threw him out for it. And then even Rizzo was like chiming in. He's like, "That's some of the softest shit I've ever seen." Like so yeah, basically these umpires are like very soft and have fragile egos, even more fragile than baseball players' egos.
Yeah, and the thing is too is that we're not talking about like Jeff McNeil, Bryce Harper, like those are the guys that are hothead. Like literally, I I love like the type of player like at his best Jeff is like slapping the ball around the field, hustling. He's very
Yeah,
versatile defensively, but like every single time a call does like a ball that he doesn't like a call doesn't go his way, like you could visibly see how frustrated he is, and it's just like kind of showing up the umpire. Like he's known to do that. So that makes sense. But like Aaron Judge is literally one of the most courteous, like sportsmanship, like I can't believe he would say anything to that degree to get thrown out that quickly. Like that just makes no sense to
yeah,
me, which basically goes with what you're saying that these umpires are they're getting so defensive at this point that like literally any type of criticism, it's just like, no,
yeah. They're
like
not
you're
hearing it.
wrong.
They're
Yeah.
just throwing you out. I also have a quick sidebar. Number one, did not realize until right now that the Nationals are actually a game over 500, but Keith Hernandez might want to start. Keith Hernandez might want to start refusing to go to Nationals games too, just based on what I've seen in the top of this 12th inning. So I'm watching this game to kind of keep up with the AL East race, and
Yeah.
so basically the sequence was the start with the ghost runner on second. Mateo hit a double, and or he hit like a base hit to left field. The left fielder throws it home, and then the throw is cut off by I think the third baseman cut off the throw. So the run scores from second, and the throw's cut off, and then he throws it, and then Mateo's going for two, and he throws it to second to try and get him out, and he just airmails it like into the outfield, and he got triple, and then he just got home on a sac fly. So or no, he didn't get home on a sac fly. He got home because of a wild pitch that went to the backstop. So yeah, I think he might have to add Washington to the list of places he won't travel to.
There's just those teams that that are they're just going to revert back to who they are at the end. I think
Yeah.
a perfect example besides the Nationals, Marlins, is the Rockies. I think a couple of days after our episode last week, they were up like 5-0 in the ninth inning, and it was the first time all season that they had a lead, like at any point. and,
So
and they
all the games they won were like walk-offs.
uh no, so it was the first time that they let yeah not walk-offs. I think it was first time where they didn't have the lead first. That makes more sense.
Oh, like first time they scored first.
Yeah. So
Oh
they
wow.
and say they were up five. So they were up 5-0, and then they ended up blowing. They ended up blowing it. I think they won the game, but they ended up blowing it. It was 5-5, and they went into extra innings.
That's horrendous. I'm actually going to a Rockies game this weekend at Coors Field, so I'm sure I'll be on the lookout for them to do something stupid like that. They're playing
Uh,
Texas, so I don't imagine it'll go too well for them.
my friend is actually who lives. Shout out to Zach. He lives in Denver. He's actually going tomorrow. I've been there, so I visited him a couple of times. I went to that stadium. I don't know if it's your first time, but it's absolutely beautiful. And
Yeah, I went there once like a few years ago. Yeah, it's a cool ballpark.
yeah, that's definitely one of the spots I want to go to for a future Mets series out there. I mean, I've seen the Dodgers play there. I forgot who the other team, but it might have been the Dodgers multiple times. But I would definitely love to get out to Denver. But just rounding out, terrible defense, terrible umpires. I don't know if you saw it too, but there was a one more situation with the Mets and the Cubs is that Pete Crow Armstrong, former Met, who's on the Cubs that we traded for 2 months of Javi Baez. He stole second base, or like he was rounding second base, and he went back, and his helmet came off, and he went. You know how, like you said, like they make sure to keep the tag on someone, especially now that they wear that
Yeah.
glove that usually slides off the bag. So he went back to second, but instead of touching it with like his hand or his foot, he touched it with his helmet, and
Oh yeah,
yeah, and Jeff McNeil tagged him, and they were just like he should have been out, and the MLB came out and
but
were
they
like,
called him
yeah,
safe.
yeah, and that's unchallengeable, and it was just like, what are we doing here? Like you someone's like, I didn't know you
Yeah,
could
it's like
use your helmet anything now to
it's
like.
like you can't, and I guess the umps don't even know the rules. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't know that was a rule because I had never seen that happen before. But still, like, that's something that if you're a professional umpire, like, in this like unionized profession where you have like all this job security and you can get away with doing whatever, like, you should probably at least know that.
Yeah, it absolutely made no sense to me whatsoever. But so not saying that the refs are the cause. There were definitely, like I said, the Mets, they're hitting with runners in scoring position.
Yeah,
Not just
yeah, can't blame
Pete,
the umps for that.
exactly. Pete, McNeil, Lindor, um, and even JD Martinez. He hasn't, he's had some clutch situations, which he did last night getting a key RBI. But if those core four, the top of the lineup, if they're not producing, especially with runners in scoring position, you're not going to win games, and it's not going to help with the added mishaps of the umpires. So all of that compiling together, the Mets were still lucky to get a series split going into the weekend, which we were hopeful that they would do the Yankees a favor. Even though the Rays were down already under 500, maybe pushing them down, the standings a little bit more, just give even more of a cushion. And the Mets got swept, and it started on Friday night. Going back to the conversation of would we rather, have a tight knit, pitching, no one's able to score matchup. We got a barn burner on Friday, 10-8 final. Jose Quintana, you know, label. He was the opening starter, but absolutely not the best pitcher on their staff right now. It was one of those games that we said, he's probably at this point in his career, maybe a low end three, high end number four pitcher, where he's going to get hit around. He doesn't have the stuff unless he's locating um, to make mistakes, and that happened, on Friday night, where he gave up 10 hits, 8 earned runs, and the Mets bats were battling back, but unfortunately, they came up a little short at the end. You thought there would be a plus side because it was 2 games in a row where they scored 5 plus runs, going from 7 to 8, and then the next day, obviously it looked like a repeat of a former pitcher known as Jacob DeGrom. Great Met, not having any run support, in the highly anticipated debut of Christian Scott. So Christian Scott is someone that we mentioned, the top pitching prospect for the Mets right now. We were wondering if they were going to bring him up due to the injury to McGill and Peterson, but also with the struggles of Hauser. And, someone who's 23, turning 24 years old, would they bring him up quicker to help stabilize the rotation and see what this kid has got? And he was no short of fantastic in his debut. You and I were texting back and forth. Had a little bit of a shaky first inning, but only escaped with 1 run. He ended up going 6 2/3, 6 strikeouts. I think a lot of the key statistics that I saw that I took away from that game was that 94 pitches, almost going 7 innings. But out of those 94 pitches, 67 were strikes, which a big common theme for this season for Mets pitching staff is that they're walking way too many batters, which is definitely putting a lot of pressure on their defense, specifically the catcher's positions, where there's been 50 base runners that have stolen out of 53 attempts this year against them. So that is not great. That's putting a lot of pressure on your staff, on your defense. So the fact that he was able to throw 67 strikes out of 94 pitches, and then there was another analytical data that showed his pitch release. So nerding out a little bit, the pitch release graphic is basically, it shows all the pitches that he throws, curveball, changeups, sweeper, fastball, and it basically shows the release point of which he throws them. So basically, when you look at this graphic, if they're all in the same area, that means a hitter can't tell what pitch is coming, that they all look the same. So basically, when we're watching a game and we're like, oh, the hitters are just going up there guessing, well, that's half true and half false. Basically, they're going up there and they're relying on graphics like that, and basically other underlying analytical data to see, what angle or what degree that they're, I know curveball's coming here. I know off speed's coming here. Or I know a fastball's coming. So all of Christian Scott's pitches were in the same actual pitch release. So that was meaning that the pitchers had no idea, the batters had no idea what was coming, and which generated, 18 whiffs throughout 6 2/3.
Yeah, no, that's I actually watched that game, and he got into a little trouble in the first inning. He like kind of I think he got the bases loaded up in the first, or he had he went like, I think, like 3 or 4 batters without recording an out, and he like gave up a run before recording an out, and I was like, oh boy, like maybe this was a mistake, maybe they called him up too soon, or maybe he's just like, just typical, like, overreactions in the first inning, like, oh, this guy isn't gonna maybe this guy isn't gonna like live up to all the hype. But no, he settled in very nicely. And obviously, and that's a good point about the pitch release. And when you're sending different pitches to the same location like that, it really does leave the batter kind of clueless. That's something I like to do, actually, when I'm playing MLB The Show. I like to I like to like hit someone with a fastball, and then like if they, and then like if they miss that, then like I'll throw them like a changeup or an off speed pitch in like the same spot and watch them whiff even harder. So it seems like he's got that down pat, and obviously with throwing basically 2/3 of his pitches, or a little more than 2/3 of his pitches being strikes. And to your point about them walking too many guys, you hope that's something that can kind of take a little bit of the burden off of the pitching staff and the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And the bullpen has been fantastic so far. I mean, in this series, Edwin Diaz did blow another save. I think it was a Rosarena that hit like an absolute just like monster shot, which I mean, helps me in a couple of fantasy leagues. But when it's coming at the expense of my Mets, I do not like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, but
Yeah,
when
the
you're
real team
having
always comes first.
exactly, you sacrifice it any day of the week. Um, but when you're having these guys having to, like we said, consistently be in high leverage situations, you'd rather give them a day off or two, be able to bring in other guys to not only, get their own. Like for example, Jorge Lopez has, he got the save. Yes, wasn't yesterday. A couple opportunities ago, Jorge Lopez got the save opportunity, and so that he was able to get into a high leverage situation, even though he's going to be your typical sixth, seventh inning guy. Yesterday, Ottavino got the save, even though he gave up that run, but still, um, not, being able to not go into like the big chunk part of your bullpen all the time, or even those long relievers that you're going to need when your pitchers get shelled. You don't want to waste those opportunities. So having Christian Scott being able to have command and throw strikes, and like we talked about, having you know the Rays being able to not know what's coming and generating all these whips, it definitely eases the load of the bullpen. Um, so that was, they ended up losing that game. I think it was the bottom of the eighth. They brought in Ottavino, and like we said, you're either going to get the good or the bad with him. So particularly on, what was it, Saturday, that was the bad. He ended up walking in a couple of runs, and with the bases loaded, and unfortunately they were not able to hit in the clutch. Um, and then so that led to Edwin Diaz blowing the save on Sunday. Um, which I took advantage of in one of my fantasy leagues. And last night I traded Edwin Diaz away for Matt Olson straight up in one of my leagues. It was the Mets Twitter league, so I think that had something to do with it. A Mets fan, because my friend was saying, I don't know how anyone would take that deal straight up,
Yeah,
straight
it's a
up.
little
So
insane.
so yeah, so like we said, that's wrapping up the Mets. Obviously not a good a week, going 2-5. But they started off this week hot, going against the only team probably worse than them hitting wise. And I had no idea. Well, actually, I did have an idea, because I feel like the Cardinals have been that team that's been floating around for a few years now. With, they don't know if they need to blow it up or if they want to compete, because their division is like kind of up for grabs every year. So they were able to take back to back wins. Yesterday, Pete Alonso was in a 1 for 29 slump. Ended up getting a couple of hits, couple of RBIs. The interesting fact out of this 2-game sweep is that um, Budo got the win yesterday, and it was the first Mets starting pitcher to get a win since April 17th. So that
Wow.
tells you how close these games have been for them, which is absolutely uh, insane.
Yeah, no, that is pretty wild. Yeah, it does suck that it does suck the Mets weren't really able to help us out at all in the Tampa series. I thought they got that game on Sunday. I thought they kind of got robbed a little bit. And I mean, as far as like what's going on with Edwin Diaz, I mean, is that like for you, is that like a cause for concern at all? Like the fact that he's because I feel like, you know, like 2021, he like I think it was his first year with the Mets, he was like very shaky.
Oh yeah.
And then, like, you know, then ever since then, you know, he's been lights out, and then he missed last year, but like, you know, with the injury in the World Baseball Classic and everything. But like, are you concerned that, you know, with his fastball, you know, that his fastball doesn't have like the juice to it, it doesn't have like the velocity or the movement? Like, are you concerned that something might be wrong with him, either mechanically or health wise?
I would definitely say it's more confidence wise, and I'm only going to allude to that, which is coming from the injury, because like you said, in 2021, he always had the stuff. It was just not having the confidence, which was leading to, like, you know, letting, you know, bomb after bomb after bomb, putting like basically beach balls right down the middle.
Yeah.
So I think that,
My favorite one was the and against the Pirates, where he like pointed to the
uh,
sky like it was a pop fly and it was a
and it
home
was
run.
just absolutely a home run to end the game. Yeah, so I'm good. It's definitely, I think, confidence wise, and it's definitely confidence wise because if you're throwing 16 sliders out of 19 pitches in the inning, that just means you don't trust your fastball. But in the past, I think it was uh, on Monday he got the save, and it looked like his fastball was back. It was elevating. It had some movement. It was still 98, 97, 98. So, you know, it's not there at the triple digits yet, but it had life on it. But then also at the same time, this is the Cardinals. They're ranked last in every metric in batting in the
Right.
National League. So if he's able to have a safe situation against the Braves and the Phillies this weekend, it's definitely something to monitor, this you know, in these next few series against the elite teams, and then we'll start to really gauge where he is on his comeback trail. um but, you know, quickly before we dive into the Yankees recap, speaking of electricity, between Edwin Diaz's, you know, fastball come back to life and the electricity of Christian Scott's debut, there is another prized rookie, but this one in all of baseball in your area making a debut this weekend on Saturday, I believe. Tell us a little bit about what, you know, who's getting called up, and you know, the excitement that's going around the Pittsburgh area.
Yes, sir. So today, Pittsburgh Pirates manager Derek Shelton announced that Paul Skeens is getting called up. He was the #1 overall pick out of LSU in last year's draft. He is getting called up, and the Pacers coach just got ejected. But yeah, so it was announced that he is getting called up. I am a little pissed off that I am not going to be there, because at first I was hearing that it could be Friday. Then they were saying that he wasn't, and I was like, oh sweet, if it's Friday, I could go. But then they said that it wasn't going to happen this weekend. But then I guess they changed their mind, and yeah, so Paul Skeens is getting called up, and he's going to make his MLB debut Saturday at PNC Park against the Cubs. If anyone needs a ticket to that game, hit me up. I got the ballpark pass. We could do an illegal transaction. Technically, I'm not supposed to sell those tickets, but maybe we could work something out. But yeah, so a very highly touted prospect, and I mean, this is like one of the fastest tracks like of a prospect like getting to MLB that I can really remember. Like as far like, you know, like
I would say
recently, or
Strasburg, right? Strasburg was
yeah,
probably the
Strasburg.
last one.
Yeah, Strasburg was pretty fast tracked, but even with him, wasn't it like didn't he wasn't it at least like a couple of years, or like 1 or 2 years?
I think it
I
was
don't
like,
remember that far back.
yeah, I thought it was like, maybe not at the end of the season, maybe a September call up or that, or maybe it was like early
Of
on going
of the year
into,
he was drafted?
yeah.
Oh, damn. Yeah, yeah, maybe. So this is probably the fastest call up since that then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was drafted like July of last year. Um, but yeah, I mean, Paul Skeens, he's you know, I mean, every time he goes out there, like I think he didn't give up his first minor league home run at all until like his last start. He's just like he projects to be like a pretty wild, a pretty wildly good pitcher. I mean, he has the stuff. He has a fastball that gets into, that can get into the 100s, and then with that he also has, like incredible movement on his breaking pitches, and he can like and it's crazy that he has like, and his confidence too, just from what I see, it's like it's so advanced, like because like he's like, typically people don't come in the league and they're like confident using any pitch as like their put away pitch to like strike batters out. Like I feel like usually when pitchers come into the league, like they'll rely on like one of their pitches, like like they'll either rely like strictly on like their slider or their curveball to like as like their put away pitch, but Skeens will like set up, Skeens will like set you up with like his fastball, but then he's also like not afraid to just like put batters away with his fastball. And then you put that with like he has like insane movement on all of his off speed pitches, like his changeup and his slider. So yeah, it's a very exciting time for Pittsburgh Pirates fans when they haven't had a whole lot to be excited about over the past over the past like 7 or 8 years, however long it's been since they last were, in the playoffs. There hasn't been a whole lot to be excited about with them, but they do have some. They have a very promising 1-2 punch with with him and Jared Jones. It's like their 1 and 2 for the foreseeable future. They're now they just need hopefully they don't give him the DeGrom treatment like the way the Mets gave Christian Scott the DeGrom treatment, because that's been a big issue for the Pirates. It really all comes down to their offense is like where they've been struggling. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, Paul Skeens, he's making his debut. It's definitely an event that I'm sad to be missing, but I'm sure it's I don't think Pittsburgh has been like this hype for like a player getting called up since Garrett Cole made his major league debut in like 2013.
Yeah, and I mean, I was just talking about this with someone last week because they were just like, I don't know how he's not in the MLB yet. And I think, it's not like the Christian Scott situation where Christian Scott was a reliever in college. He didn't have that many AAA starts last year, so they still wanted to get him work, get him innings in. The Pirates were not letting Skeens go past like 3-4 innings this year, so
Yeah,
they were like having him save his bullets, but it's also at the same time, it's like, what's the point of him doing that in AAA, dominating? Like, if you're gonna have him go 3 or 4 innings, let him do it at the MLB level. Like, if you're not going to use him that much, there's like obviously we know they're doing it to manipulate his service time, but at the same time, you're also like hindering him because you're not stretching his arm out. So if you're gonna limit him that way, at least do it on the major league level. So like you can at least get the eye test. So it was kind of just odd. So I'm glad that finally that they're bringing him up and they're gonna, who knows? Maybe it's just another jolt of energy that like invigorates their bats. And has them wake up and maybe they'll start clicking again like they were in the beginning of the season, prior to when they versed the Mets. Ironically.
yeah, and even and even and even if he does, now that he is up, like maybe now they could even use him a little more, since they have been saving him, since they've kind of been saving him and preserving him in AAA. Like, now that he's like up and in the big leagues, like I see no reason like why, as long as like everything's going well and he's pitching, I don't think he'll be as dominant starting out as he necessarily was in AAA. Obviously there's a big difference in the level of talent of the hitters that he's going to be facing. But if the stuff is there and the command is there and everything, and he's pitching well, I don't see why you wouldn't stretch him out a few more innings and try and get 5 or 6 out of him. I mean, to me, like like fuck the whole service time thing. If he's ready, he's ready. And like these Pirates fans, they've been they've been waiting a long time for this, and they just they just want to win. So like there's really no need to, if he's someone that can help you win, they're only a few games out of the wild card spot. So if he's someone that can help you, attain a wild card spot, there's really not much of a reason to continue to play that whole game of manipulating the service time. So I would say, you could even get some more out of him, now that he's at the level, this is what you drafted him for, was to be your ace. So, for him to be able to, do that, so quickly, it's very impressive, and I'm definitely excited to see how he does. And unfortunately, I'll miss his debut, but I'm gonna try and get to one of his starts ASAP.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's probably going to be electric there on Saturday, but hopefully he's able to deliver and make it a spectacle event, even if it doesn't lead to overall team success for the Pirates. Hopefully for you, it becomes like that that Matt Harvey, Jacob Degrom situation where even though the Mets were terrible during those years, every time they were pitching, it was must see, it was electric, the stadium
Yeah,
was packed, and then so that you'll be able to live through some of that moment, especially through his rookie year.
yeah, no, definitely, yeah. So I mean, it's exciting to see, and yeah, and Livy Dunn's coming to Pittsburgh too, so yeah, the vibes are high in Pirates land.
Absolutely, and not only are vibes high in Pirates land, but
Even though they
th-
just got swept by the Angels.
yeah, also the lowly Angels, but definitely, hopefully, bring some life to them. But not only is there some life for them for this weekend, it looks like there's going to be a jolt of life in the pinstripe area after the beatdown these past couple of days with the Astros, following a tough series going down in Baltimore last week. So let's go over the recap, what we saw from the Yankees in the beginning of the week in Baltimore, and then after that letdown, they started to. It seems like they started to play pretty pissed off, and the bats started to come alive, and they've been dominating, about to win their, I believe, fifth in a row. It'll be after tonight.
Yes. So they're currently on a 5-game winning streak. They swept the Tigers, and they just took the first 2 out of 3 against the Astros. But yeah, so but rewinding a little bit to times where the vibes weren't as high. So I know I said on the last podcast I wanted the Yankees to come in and try and at least split with the Orioles, if not take 3 out of 4. That unfortunately did not happen. The first game last Monday, they lose that game 2-0. Not really, not really a whole lot to say. Just your typical giving Clark Schmidt the Jacob DeGrom treatment. Clark Schmidt's actually been having a pretty good year. He was someone who he was someone who last year he was someone who last year I was like, oh, this guy sucks. Like, I want him off my team. And and then, like, before this season started, my good friend Paul, who I used to do a baseball podcast with, he just said, like, kind of out of nowhere, he was just like, oh yeah, Clark Schmidt's gonna have a breakout year this year. I was like, where's he gonna be breaking out? Like Scranton? Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, we don't even have the pitching depth for you to make that joke. And yeah, I gotta hand it to him. So far, he's been very right about Clark Schmidt. But yeah, just no run support in that game. They dropped that game 2-0. Then next game they lose that game 4-2. Again, just not really getting, again, really just not getting anything going. Like, really, for those games, like, pretty much all the bats with the exception of Soto, like, everyone's was just like ice cold. Then they pull out. Then they finally get a win. They beat them. what was the score of that game? Oh, they beat them 2-0. So like another pitching duel. It was a pitching duel between Luis Gil and Corbin Burns, but the Yankees found themselves on the right side of that. They put 2 runs on the board in the 5th inning in that game. They were able to squeak out a 2-0 win with 4 hits. They basically won that game off of or I shouldn't say basically, they did win that game off of an Ozzy Cabrera 2-run homer. Then the next game was it was a afternoon game where they just absolutely got their asses kicked. They lost that game 7-2. Rodon got absolutely shelled in that game. Gleyber Torres had his obligatory Camden Yards home run that I told you all was coming.
Yep.
He had a home run, and I think who else got an RBI? Rizzo also had like an RBI. Rizzo had an RBI single, I believe, in that game too. Or actually, that was what opened up the scoring. Was Rizzo got an RBI, so they're actually winning at one point in that game. But then it kind of just immediately fell apart. After that, they gave up a run in the 3rd. Then they gave up 2 in the 4th. Then in the 5th, they really got blown up. And they probably left Rodon in that game a little too long. You know, they maybe could have taken him out. They maybe could have taken him out a little bit sooner. Might have had a better chance. But I mean, when Gleyber Torres is like one of the only reasons you even put runs on the board that day, that's usually not a recipe for success. So I mean, that was disappointing. You know, I was expecting that series to be a lot more competitive than it was. And like I was saying on the last episode, like when you're going up against like a divisional rival that early, you want to make a statement. But I mean, I guess at the end of the day, we're still tied for first, so it's like no harm, no foul, really. But I mean, it was a little disappointing, because the Orioles just looked like a way better team. Like throughout that series, it's just like, like when you're like watching 2 teams and it's just clear that one's better. Like it just felt like that type of, series where it just felt like we were outmatched. But then I guess after that, something must have lit a fire, under their asses, because they go in. The Bats come to life and they sweep the Detroit Tigers. Friday they beat them. Or wait, I'm looking at the wrong Friday. My bad. I'll be looking at last Friday. Yeah, so last Friday they beat them 2-1 off of an Anthony Rizzo homer. So like Rizzo was someone who, like, at the beginning of the year looked pretty washed and looked like he might be done, but over the past week or so, he's really been heating up. So they went off of a 2-run homer by Rizzo. Or no, my bad. It wasn't a homer. It was a Stanton hit a RBI double, and then Rizzo knocked in Stanton on a single for the win. So they took that game. So I mean, at that point, I'm kind of thinking like, all right, like we got to win. Obviously you take a win any way you can get them, but still a little discouraging. That they're not, really scoring or hitting. It seemed like a little bit more of the same. And at that point, I wasn't really exactly penciling them in for a sweep. Then they kind of came to life the next couple of games. They went 5-3 against the Tigers on Saturday, and that's when Rizzo started to really heat up too. He hit a home run that day, and then he hit a home run. The following day, and then Sunday they win again. Then they won that game. I believe they won that game a little more dominantly. They won that game 5-2. And again, Rizzo, was a big reason behind that. and then yeah, they've carried that momentum, into the series against Houston, and even though Houston kind of stinks right now, and they're obviously they're like 12 games under 500, and their downfall is being thoroughly enjoyed. Number one, I'm still not ready to fully write the Astros off, although the Yankees are kind of, maybe the Yankees are kind of putting like one of the nails in their coffin. I mean, it's getting late early for them. I wouldn't say they're done, but they're kind of running out of time to, before they're in too deep of a hole to get out of. But they absolutely beat the piss out of them yesterday. They win that game 10-3. Luis Gil pitched brilliantly. And then pretty much everyone was contributing in that game. Volpe hit a home run. Verdugo hit a home run. Stanton hit a home run. He had another home run tonight. Judge hit a home run tonight. They won that game 9-4. So yeah, I mean, and the Yankees also have like one of the best bullpens in the league right now. Clay Holmes has saved like 100% of the games that he's had save opportunities in. He hasn't blown one, at least not yet. So yeah, everything's going pretty swimmingly for them so far. Now if the Orioles could just start to lose a couple of games, then we might really be in business.
Yeah, I think going back to the Orioles series, I think one of the situations it maybe is that the Orioles are, they're young, they're young up and coming team. We say up and coming, but we know they're there based on last
Yeah.
year. But once when they're playing at home, especially when an opponent like I guess a upcoming rival like Yankees, with the star power of Judge, Soto, all those guys, when they come into your ballpark, I think it gave them a little bit of extra juice. So I don't know. We'll have to see when they come, into the Bronx if that's gonna correlate and relay and see how dominant they really are. But, sometimes young teams like that, they just have a different confidence when it comes to playing in their own ballpark. So I think that was one of the situations, at least early on in this season. But I think between what you can take away though is despite Rodon, who's been very inconsistent in his tenure with the Yankees,
Yeah.
is that
He had a good he had a good night tonight though.
yeah, so that's definitely, especially not a great Houston team, but that has a very capable and still all-star studded lineup. So him
Yeah.
being able to have success against them tonight was definitely a good sign moving forward. But I think seeing the bullpen consistently dominate still, that's always a plus. It's something that you you don't want to be a team that's consistently looking to plug and play, bullpen arms throughout the season. You want to know the guys who you can go with that are the long relievers, that are your high leverage, and people that you could put in, games like tonight where you're kicking the shit out of Houston. You don't have to waste, the back end guys that you could throw
Yeah.
in, those mid tier, correlating with the Mets, like the Drew Smith, the Sean Reed Foley's, like those guys that can go in and you're not worried about blowing the game. So I think having that, even though they lost to the Orioles, they were still able to throw those guys out there and they were still able to hold their own. But seeing guys like Luis Gil pitching well against the Orioles and then getting the win and then pitching well again against Houston last night. So having, I guess he was your number 5 starter coming into the season. Having him, he's been actually probably one of the most consistent pitchers on the starting staff right now. I probably shouldn't have dropped him in one of my fantasy leagues, but you know maybe that's leading to some of his success. But I think it's
I
definitely
actually made the same mistake. I picked him up and then I dropped him. Like he had like a good start or two, then he had like one bad start and I dropped him like an idiot. But yeah, so maybe it's our powers combined.
It could be that. It could be that for the greater good that they just can't land on our team. Like we'll just hurt them way too much.
For
But I
sure.
but I think the biggest surprise, out of both teams. But I think specifically, for the Yankees is how well the pitching, from top to bottom has held up for sure. And then I think also because you were last week when we were talking about, who's been struggling so far a month into the season, you were going to put Anthony Rizzo up there, but he was actually coming along the past couple of games. So it's good to see that he was, putting that together and looks like finally maybe he's not going to get back to, his all-star MVP caliber, we're talking about 7, 8 years ago. He's finally starting to maybe become a consistent hitter like that is a capable threat. If you're talking about Anthony Rizzo as your 7 hitter, 6, 7 hitter, that's absolutely like a
Yeah, that's like
star-studded lineup
fine.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, it's like a fine role for him at this point in his career. I mean, with the thing with Rizzo, I feel like he's always been like very hot and cold. Like even before, like I know last year he had the whole, last year after he got the concussion, he went like, he went like 1 for 23 or something like that. And he just looked like lost in pretty much every aspect of the game. And then finally they're like, oh, yeah, we think he suffered a concussion like 2 or 3 months ago. We're going to shut him down now. And then, but even like, so I mean, I'm not expecting him to be on like an absolute tear like the rest of the season. I'm sure there will be times where there will be times where he's like frustrating, where it's like frustrating to watch him at the plate. But I think like overall I think that he's not like by any means he's not like a lost cause. He's someone that can still be like a net positive for the Yankees. So I think if you could get like a net positive out of Anthony Rizzo at this point in his career, coming off of that, concussion and that whole situation from last year, I think that's a win. And obviously, any power that you have like from the left-handed side, at Yankee Stadium, is always going to come in handy, any time of year. So, you know, shout outs to Anthony Rizzo for for persevering and getting it together and helping this team in a big way this past week or so.
Yeah, I think this year we could definitely tell the difference from when they initially traded for him and he was supposed to be that security for Judge and to kind of be one of
Yeah, that
the
yeah,
yeah,
that was just too big of an ask, I think. To
yeah,
be like to be Judge's protection, like yeah, you needed like someone more serious like a Juan Soto to fill that role.
exactly. So instead of like asking him to be your other catalyst, so like for example, if for the Mets, it's either you have Pete Alonso, you have Lindor. So the Yankees were asking, okay, if it's not Judge, can it be Rizzo? And now you're seeing it this year. You have Judge, Soto. If you have a healthy Stanton, you have Volpe up and coming. Cabrera is looking like he's becoming a nice everyday player, versatile in all of his spots. So if you're having that as the top of your, is as your main core 4 5 to rely upon, and then you have Rizzo down further in the lineup with that left-handed power. That is absolutely a game changer when it comes to the Yankees, and definitely eases the pressure for him, especially in this stage in his career.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, like, obviously he's a little older. I think he's like 35 now, or something like that. But to be, to be at that, I think that the role, like what they have him in now for this point in his career, I think it's, as long as he like, as long as he can, try and mitigate the whole like as long as he can try and mitigate those like 1 for 23 slumps that he goes on every once in a while. I think that the role that they have him in, and like maybe with his role being a little reduced, maybe he doesn't hit that 1 for 23 slump because he's not being asked to be like the guy after Judge or like like the main protection in the lineup. So I think that the role that they have him in is kind of like, I think it's a really good fit for like both parties. Like it's a good fit for him and the point he's at in his career, and it's kind of right where the Yankees need him to be, for where they're at as a team right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, he's finally asked to not, put too much on his plate. And as a result, you're seeing, him, it looks like it's starting to finally click. And, it showed again tonight. I think it was the notification that I got that Soto, Judge, and Stanton all homered in the first time in the same game all together for the first time this season tonight. So once you have see,
Yeah,
so when
the
you're not
vision's coming to
asking him
life.
exactly, the vision's finally coming to life, and so we're hoping that it continues to stay in this life when for this upcoming weekend. So we're just gonna do, since we're recording on a Wednesday night, we'll go through the just the rest of the week. Starting with, and it's looking like a rivalry weekend, which concludes tomorrow for the Yankees with the Astros, and then going into a weekend series with the Rays. So, just give a little bit of your thoughts before we move on to our other topics of debate for the night.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, we got one more game against Houston, which I believe that would be the last game we play Houston, probably for the rest of the year, which is kind of a nice feeling. I mean, assuming they don't go on some crazy run and make the playoffs, we probably won't see them there. So that's like a pretty nice, like relieving feeling as a Yankee fan. I can't even lie, for how much trouble they've given us, over the past 6, 7 years. So hopefully we could beat them tomorrow, and we would sweep the season series. Then we have a weekend tilt coming up in Tampa Bay, at the old Tropicana Field. People can say what they want about Yankee Stadium, but there's no ballpark that's more of a bullshit like Little League ballpark than Tropicana Field.
It's absolutely
Um,
a joke.
yeah, so looking at that series, we have so they play each other Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sunday is my birthday, so they better fucking win that game, or else
Oh,
I'll
let's
never
go.
I'll never forgive them. Uh, but yeah, so looking at the pitching matchups, it looks like we'll have Clark Schmidt going up against Taj Bradley, who is I guess he's another young pitcher who is making his major league debut. I can't say I know. I guess 'tis the season for young major league pitcher debuts, but yeah, it'll be Clark Schmidt versus Taj Bradley. So hopefully the Yankees can give him a nice warm welcome to the show, and beat the absolute piss out of him, and he doesn't get out of the first inning. I'll have to do a little more. We'll have to do a little more research on him. Then they got in the second game, they got Nasty Nestor going up against Zach Littell or Zach Little.
Yep.
I think that game could be. I think that game could be a bit of a coin flip. You know, Nestor's been pitching. Pitching pretty well as of late, but he can. He is susceptible to get his shit rocked every once in a while. The Rays lineup does seem a little bit like it's the Rays lineup does seem a little bit like it's coming to life a little, and that they're maybe they have a little more juice now. They've been putting together some wins. They worked their way back up to 500, so they're
Yeah.
not
Sorry about
completely.
that.
Yeah, you're good. So they're not. It's not like you were out there. So they're not completely. They're not completely dead by any means. I mean, really, nobody in the AL East is. I mean, right now the Blue Jays are in last place with a 17-20 record, but then then they'll finish that. They'll finish up that series Sunday with a 1:40 start time. The pitching matchup for that is TBD, but that I would imagine that Luis Gil would be in line for that start, if I'm not mistaken, because he started because he started yesterday, which was Tuesday, so that'd be 5 days Sunday. So
Yep.
yeah, so I think I'll say pretty much what I always say. If you could take if you could take 2 out of 3, and I mean, I'd say you're kind of playing with house money in this game against Houston tomorrow, but I want the sweep for everything Houston is for all the pain that Houston has caused us. I want the sweep, but you are kind of playing with house money. It's going to be that Rodrigo Blanco guy against Marcus Stroman.
It's my
And
boy.
yeah, Blanco's been really fucking. He's been like really good. He's like one of the few bright spots of the Astros as of late. So yeah, I mean, if you could get that sweep and then take 2 out of 3, take 2 out of 3 this weekend against Tampa, I would say that's a very successful a very successful week overall, and then that should set you up nicely for a series in Minnesota next week, where the Yankees always seem to have the Twins number, regardless of what year it is or what's going on.
Yeah. So if you ask people in my other fantasy leagues, they'll say that I have no reasoning, no data for like the moves that I make on the free agency, but for somehow they work. And that the two prime examples are Blanco and Little from Tampa Bay. I have both of those guys in multiple leagues. They're you know pitching very well this year, so that's pretty funny that the Yankees are going up against both of them. So I'm gonna have to pay a little more attention to that Rays Yankees matchup this weekend. But I think the definitely the Astros are becoming the baseball version of New England Patriots, where everyone is just rooting against them and their downfall definitely. And for me, I mean, I like Justin Verlander seems like a great person, but there's a stipulation in his contract so we're paying we ate most of the money in his contract, and thank you in return. We got two top 100 prospects from the Astros. I'll be gracious every single time I mention that. But if he pitches under 140 innings this year, then the Astros, then the player option is not valid next year, and the Mets will be off the hook of his contract. So him getting lit up for 4 innings yesterday is absolutely wonderful to my eyes as Yankee fans in general. I think when it comes to the Rays, something that is definitely starting to click for them that could be scary is Randy Rosarena. I have him in a couple of leagues. I was able to get him on the cheaper side in trades because of he was having
His
a slow
struggles.
start, and he is absolutely starting to hit the piss out of the ball recently. So Nestor is someone that I think I read. I think TJ Stats is one of the Twitter accounts that does a lot of underlying data when it comes to pitchers, and I think it's that Nestor's his velocity is down. So if he's not able to, have good command and locate his pitches, he's going to get, lit up this year. And so
Yeah.
having a soft lefty go against someone as hot as Rosarena right now could definitely be very dangerous. And I think I have Paredes in a couple of leagues. Series always one set power as well. So you don't
Yeah,
want to be
Yandy
giving up
Diaz.
yeah, you don't want to be giving up hard contacts to these Rays right now. So hopefully it was just a Mets thing and not them getting,
Yeah.
on a hitting streak.
Yeah. I think Nestor's fastball is around, like, I think it's been around like 93 or 94 for the most part this year. So obviously, when you're a hitter and you're used to seeing, fastballs be like 98 to 103 miles an hour, 93 to 94 is basically, without significant movement, is basically like seeing a changeup, and if you leave that right down the dick, then they're going to make you pay. Um, that's probably why he kind of resorts to doing all like the fucky shit with his leg kicks and whatnot that
Yep.
seems to drive people crazy. I don't really care. I just think it's funny that other people seem to get so mad at it. But yeah, that's definitely he'll need to definitely if the Yankees are gonna if the Yankees are gonna take that game on Saturday, he'll definitely need to be, he'll definitely need to be like on his shit for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a prime example of someone who later on in their career, the fastball was dying down, but was able to locate and have movement on it. I mean, not, it wasn't 94, 93. It was more in the 90s, and that was Bartolo Colon. Obviously, he was pitching into his 40s, but he was still able to be, a successful, like 3-4 starter because he was able to get movement and he was just always throwing strikes. So that's, the command is always going to be a huge key, especially if you're a lefty and you're not throwing hard, you need movement. It's just how it is in today's MLB.
Yeah, for sure. I think Masahiro Tanaka was like pretty good at that too. Like I always one of like my deepest regrets when it comes to baseball is like that I wish that whenever Tanaka had that injury where he could have gotten Tommy John but he opted not to, and then like his velocity was never the same. I always wish he would have gotten the Tommy John, sat out for the year or whatever, and then see like how he came back from it, because I feel like he could have been like he was good. He had a great career, but I feel like he could have been like, I feel like if he would have gotten Tommy John, he could have won like a Cy Young award or two. But that's neither here or there. But basically, my point is that he did do very well with like, when he lost that velocity on his fastball, he was still like very good with his command, and dude was just a gamer. He would just go out there, he would grind, he'd get you into trouble, but then he'd work his way out. Whenever like you were in like a tough spot, like where it's like, all right, like you're in a playoff series and you're down 2-0 and you absolutely need a win, you could always count on Tanaka to come through. So shout outs to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no matter who comes over, like those Japanese pitchers are just workhorses. They're just a pleasure to watch. I mean, like I do rip on Yamamoto obviously for not choosing the Mets, but still watching him, Senga, like all those guys that come through, just the
Yeah.
arm angle, the stuff that they have is absolutely great. But hopefully going from a workhorse mentality and keeping you in the game and dogging it out. Hopefully that's what's going to happen in Quintana's next outing because he's going to need to be a workhorse starting this Friday, which will start off a 3-game series against the Atlanta Braves, a Friday night game, which I will be in attendance with.
Oh
With
yeah, there's
two
gonna be like a little Ascension podcast gathering for that, right?
There will be. So right now it is confirmed for myself. Our boy Stefan, who's flying in from Arizona. Jude, Jude will be making an appearance at City Field in May, so that's always a good sign that
All right.
we're, we're getting him before the Mets are in the dumps.
Remind
And
me to
then,
bet on the Braves that game.
yeah, absolutely. And then that and a Pete home run, just so because he'll probably try to stick it to Stefan. And then
True.
one of our fearless leaders, Andrew Case, also today said he may be trying to get some things done and trying to make it work. He is trying to make it there Friday, so a Friday night game, which is I haven't been to a Friday night game. I think I don't even know. Last year I might have been day games as well, but apparently they do like a whole night light show now this year. Hopefully it's the premiere of the black jerseys, but I don't know. Fanatics is fucking a bunch of things up when it comes to the jerseys this year. So the Mets haven't they've wore their City Connects 3 times already because they don't have the pants for their black jerseys yet and something like that.
What a
So
disgrace. I mean, the City Connects are fire, but like
I
what a
love them.
disgrace that like the most simple thing, like they just, how do you not have pants? How does that happen?
A
Um
multi-billion dollar industry. I don't know. You don't have pants. You have the A's who
yeah.
have a payroll of like $7 million. Like there's shit that goes on in baseball that's basically a money laundering scheme
Yeah.
in the grand
Yeah,
of it.
there is a lot of that going on. Money
But
laundering.
the boys will be going on Friday night. It is Quintana versus Morton. The Mets actually fare pretty well against Morton, so this definitely has the potential to be a little bit of a shootout, as they say. Hopefully, good things, come with us being making our first appearance at City Field this year. I'll be wearing my black DeGrom jersey just for the occasion. Friday
Fire.
night blackout. Yeah, absolutely, bringing some good vibes. Leading us into Saturday, which I also will be in attendance to. I will be going with my friends from Mets Twitter Fantasy League. Um, one of them is actually a girl. Girl, shout out to Marissa that I co a team with. So that'll be a City Connect jersey day, and that'll be uh, I think it's Christian Scott. It says Luis
Yeah,
Severino, but it should be Christian Scott on Saturday, right?
yeah. I mean, I guess it depends where you're looking. I'm looking on MLB, and it says I'm looking on MLB.com, and it says that it's going to be Max Fried versus Christian Scott on Saturday. You
Yeah.
would
So
think.
yeah,
When
they're
did when
probably
did Sevy
correct.
last pitch?
So Sevi pitched on.
Yeah, because it says here that Sevy will pitch on Sunday, and that Scott will pitch on Saturday.
Yeah, so Sevi pitched. Well, I think the last time he pitched was against the. It was against the Rays on that Friday,
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah. Then I guess if that's the case, then maybe they have it flip flopped. I
Well,
don't really know.
I think he was supposed to go today. So or no, it's all messed up with the rain out. I think the rain out messed up. So it was supposed to be um okay, so Sevi may be going Friday instead. And then
Yeah,
I because I think the whole rain out messed up everything, and they may just keep they don't probably want to mess up Scott's schedule. So they're probably going to keep that intact and have him go Saturday. So
Scott
we may
Saturdays.
yes, Scott Saturday. So
Scott
that's
and Skeens pitching Saturday.
yeah. So seeing two of the future MLB. I mean, if it's Freed and Scott, that could be a very enticing pitcher's duel. We're either getting Sevy or Quintana on
Mets in the
Friday. So
under.
yes, the Mets in the under on Saturday for sure. And then going on Sunday, it's either going to be Quintana, Sevy, or Manaya. Either way, I'm
Yeah,
hoping that being
Quintana
there.
he pitched to or he no wait he pitched yesterday. Quintana, right?
So if okay, so we're gonna. This is how we're gonna find out the issue. We're gonna get this done once and for all.
I blame
Okay,
Fanatics.
Buto was yesterday. I do blame Fanatics as well. Fuck them. And Sean Mania was Monday, and Sunday was Severino. Okay, there we go.
Oh yeah,
Hauser
Quintana
was on
pitched like
Friday. That got late. Yeah,
and Quintana pitched Friday.
yeah. So yes, Katana was the one who got lit up. So
It's
Katana will be Friday. So it looks like they're going to do Scott Saturday, and then they're going to do They'll probably move up Severino to Sunday, which I like better. I'd rather have Severino with his stuff go against the Braves. I mean, Manai's been pitching very well. He hasn't been going very deep, but him,
yeah,
having a lefty go against Acuna, that lineup, Riley, the Braves, that's just, that could, especially on a Sunday afternoon, definitely leads to a disaster
for
for sure.
sure. It's crazy how much like one rain out like threw the whole like rotation schedule like out of whack.
Yeah.
Um, like like Sevy's basically getting like a over a week off from pitching.
Well,
Same with
Scott went
Quintana.
Saturday too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So Scott's getting a full 7 days. I mean, it's not like a bad thing. It's just kind of crazy how like one day you'll throw it off. I mean, it kind of makes me wonder like were there actually tornadoes in St. Louis today, or were the Cardinals just scared?
I mean, what my off so my I mean, we're obviously on the East Coast, but literally, I had no clue whatsoever that that game had a chance to be rained out. So that's
Yeah,
bad on my part. Definitely screwed me in fantasy for a couple of slots to put players in because games were starting already. But yeah, I guess I don't know. I mean, I not only did the Mets want to get away on getaway day, but it seemed like the weather wanted to get them out of there as well very
Yeah.
swiftly. No one wanted to see another Cardinals Mets matchup.
Especially not the Cardinals.
Yeah, so hoping since I'm gonna be there 2 out of 3 games, that they win those 2 games and then they take the series. They're going into a big stretch, 7 games in a row against division foes, especially both that are in front of you. So if you want to be taken seriously, if you want to show that, maybe the bats are still waking up, that the pitching staff could definitely go against an elite lineup in high leverage situations, this is the chance to do it on a 7 game homestand against the top 2 rivals, against 2 teams that are just absolutely hot right now. So, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, no, I think yeah, I mean, I think if you are, obviously if you could take both games that both games that Ascension podcast will be attending, that's a W in of itself. And then if they could, add that cherry on top and, get a birthday W for me on Sunday with my boy Sevi, that would be a very successful weekend against a Braves team that, obviously they're one of the best teams in the league. You know, you got to watch out for, obviously they have studs up and down their lineup. You got to watch out for Olsen and Osuna. Because Osuna, when he's not driving intoxicated, he is he's probably the best power hitter in baseball right now. I believe he leads the league with 12 home runs. He hit 2 today against Boston. So yeah, and then obviously, can't say enough about Acuna either and how good he is. He's the reigning MVP for a reason. So yeah, I mean, if you could take 2 out of 3 against the division rival and the Braves, and you carry that momentum into another big series against the Phillies, then you could be in a pretty good spot, by the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, you're just hoping to, I guess, until the bats start picking up, to keep fighting and clawing. I think a good thing this year is that they have been, very mentally tough when it's coming back. They get swept by the Rays, they come back and they technically sweep the Cardinals, and it's
Yeah,
with the bats and pitching as well. But yeah, for the Mets to go against 2 of their rivals, we also got some news, as we're closing out with some news, with their, I guess, not so rival anymore, since they're reverting back to their old selves. But there was a I, I guess a very substantial trade for such an early part of the season. Um, so the Marlins traded Luis Ariz, who they acquired just last year, January 2023, for Pablo Lopez, one of the top pitchers in the American League. Um, so they traded him away for 4 prospects: Nathan Martorella, Dylan Head, Jacob Marcy, and the good old Woo Suk Go from the San Diego Padres. So, as my friend Zach would like to say, this was a very, mid trade, I guess, for both sides. I mean, Luis Ariz is a name, but at this point, I don't think giving up 4 prospects for him was like warranted. But
no, not for
it
someone
definitely,
who hasn't hit a single home run this year. I don't
exactly,
care.
like,
I
I'm
don't give a fuck what his batting average is.
exactly. I mean, like, it's all cool and all, but like, if no one's on base, like, he's gonna bat at the top of your lineup, and so he's not gonna have that many, I guess, like, hitting
Yeah, like
situations
if no
for runners
one's
in
and like
scoring
if
position.
yeah, I mean maybe that situation improves in San Diego, going to a better lineup. But I mean it's like if you're getting on base, like what's really the point if no one's if there's no one else that can like get you home.
Yeah, and I don't know if, I mean, it just seems like that the San Diego Padres are obsessed with moving all of their middle infielders just around like a big Tetris board. So I don't know if
Yeah,
they're moving Bogarts at one point, because he, for a second baseman, he is getting a substantial contract, which I mean, shouldn't mean anything at the end if you're like a great player, which he currently is not.
Yeah,
The,
he's not really. Yeah, I was gonna say he's not really like worth, not really worth the money that they're paying him at the moment.
yeah, so you already moved Tatis into the outfield. Now you have Bogarts. Now you're bringing in a Rise, who's a higher upside defender. So you know,
Yeah,
uh,
you do wonder if they try to unload Bogarts' contract like they kind of unloaded Soto because I think they were having like cash issues or something like that with all like the players they've been paying. They've had like cash flow issues, so that was like part of the reason why they traded Soto. So I wouldn't be shocked if they did the same thing with Bogarts, like, even though they just signed him to like an 11-year deal.
yeah. I mean, in the end, I guess we can commend San Diego for like getting, I guess, someone that's going to he's going to help them. I mean, personally, we wouldn't do it, and if the Mets or Yankees made that trade, um,
Yeah, I'd be pretty
we would
pissed.
just be like, well, like, what is
Well,
going on?
actually, I mean, he'd be an upgrade from Glaber at second. So I mean, like, but like for four prospects, I don't know about
Yeah,
that.
I mean, like, we'll go over the prospects, but I mean, to like I think the highest in the Marlins. I think Dylan Head is the number 5 in the Marlins system now. But like you said before, he's not going to come up to 2027. It's just weird that when you're looking the whole scope from January 2023, so um, a year and a quarter later, the Marlins traded Luis Ariz and Pablo Lopez for these 4 dudes.
Hmm.
So so you, I don't know what's going on. So if you want to give a little detail about these prospects and how uninspiring that they are based on the information that you found on them, enlighten us about these guys.
So Dylan Head, great name by the way. He I mean, he's the number 5 overall prospect in the Marlins farm system, which isn't really saying a whole lot because as far as I know, like they don't have a great farm system, and he's not a top 100 prospect even. So, like that's a little bit underwhelming. Just from like what little research I've done on him, seems like he seems like he has it seems like he can run pretty fast, and he does have he has good hitting ability, and he has a quick swing. Um, and and like the way he's like very fast out of the batter's box, so he can like kind of turn those infield ground balls into base hits. But he's of the people in this of the people in this hall of prospects, he's probably the farthest away from seeing the big leagues. He's not projected to be called up until 2027. So I mean, I guess that's a fine move for the Marlins. I mean, it is kind of crazy, even though like they probably had the right idea, like that they're not gonna make the playoffs this year. But to throw in, to wave the white flag and throw in the towel, like May 1st or whatever day they traded him, is kind of substantially early for that type of move. And you would have thought maybe they would have waited till like Arias like started to maybe get a couple of home runs on the board and get his trade value up a little bit. So I mean, they got him, and he's not projected to be up until 2027, which I guess if that's like the window that you're looking to start competing in, I guess that's fine. But he's not anything. He's really nothing. I mean, he seems like he could be a good player, but nothing to really write home about. Which makes sense because like I don't think Luis Arias is anything to really write home about either. So, you're not going to get like a blue chip prospect in this type of return. Then they got Jacob Marcy, who is currently in Double A Pensacola. He's ranked as their number 10 prospect. He has um, a good bat and good plate discipline, which got him a selection in the 6th round out of Central Michigan. He did draw 98 walks in 2022, or no, I think he drew 98 walks last year, which led the team. He had a 413 on base percentage. So, obviously anyone who can get on base at that type of clip is going to be extremely valuable. We'll see, I guess, if that translates, to the big leagues. He won MVP honors for the Arizona Fall League, and he doesn't really chase pitches. He's someone who's going to make you throw strikes, and he can hit the ball pretty hard. He is projected to come up next year in 2025. So I'd say I'm, just based on like what I'm reading, I would say I'm probably higher on him than the other guy, Dylan Head, even though Dylan Head has like a higher ranking in their prospect pool. And then looking at Nathan Martarola, he's also in AA Pensacola. He's ranked as their number 11 prospect. He hit he went to Cal U, and in 2022 he hit 333 and 11 home runs, and he got drafted in the 5th round of 2022. His batting average dipped quite a bit when he was in high A and double A in his first professional season, but he did keep the power up. He had 19 home runs, and he finished with a 123 WRC plus, which is pretty good. He's another guy who's like pretty good at working the counts and like laying off pitches out of the zone. Someone who's going to like make a pitcher work and throw strikes. He projects as a first baseman / outfielder, and he is also projected to get called up in 2025. And the analysis that I'm reading here, it says both him and Jacob Marcy are both like further along and closer to being ready than Dylan Head is. Then you got Woo-Suk Go, absolutely elite name. He is currently in the AAA. He's currently in the AAA team in Jacksonville. San Diego signed him to a 2-year, $4.5 million deal. He posted a 3.18 ERA and 401 strikeouts and 368.1 innings in the minors. And he came up in spring training, kind of got his shit rocked. He had a 12.6 ERA, and then he was down in Double A San Antonio. He got where he had a 4.38 ERA and a 1.46 WHIP. His fastball is in the mid 90s, it says, but it says it could peak at 98 miles an hour with multiple breaking pitches. So it looks like what the Padres wanted from him was for him to be to be like one of their high leverage relievers. He had 139 saves in his career with the LG Twins in the KBO.
Jesus.
So it says that his projected like call up time is his call-up time is actually projected to be later this season, which makes sense because he's pitching in AAA right now. With the Marlins, presumably, I'm sure this is just the beginning of them selling the farm. Or not selling the farm, but selling the present to get the farm. So I mean, Tanner Scott is like kind of one of their better, more valuable pieces. Everyone's always trying to add relievers and closers at the deadline. So good chance that Tanner Scott will get dealt to a contending team at the deadline. You know, someone's relief. There's going to be a relief pitcher that gets hurt. There's going to be a team that wants to add an arm to their bullpen for a playoff run. So he'll probably get called up, like probably at the latest after the deadline. So those are the guys that those are the guys that the Padres got, or those are the guys that the Marlins got from the Padres for Luis Arias. I think that your boy Zach pretty much hit the nail on the head. That it's kind of a mid, kind of a whatever trade for both parties involved. I mean, obviously, like I think it's a fine move for the Padres, especially if they are planning to somehow try to move Bogaerts' contract. Although, like right now, I don't know who would take it. I mean, Bogaerts can play second, which I wonder if they do they try hitting up the Yankees and being like, hey, remember how you took Juan Soto off our hands? Well, do you think you could do the same with Xander Bogaerts? Because while he isn't that good, he would be an upgrade from Gleyber Torres, who's like really the only like weak link on the Yankees right now. But I don't know. I don't see the Yankees like taking on like that type of money for a player that's like not performing like up to like where they should be. So, I don't really know what the answer is or like what their plan is. Like you said, it seems like they're just playing a big game of Tetris with their middle infielders. But I mean, he gets on base. He walks a lot. He gets he doesn't hit for power, but he hits plenty for average. And maybe with a better lineup and better pieces around him, maybe that will yield better results for him and his new team.
Yeah, I think the most surprising part about it is that if they, like you said, if he were to heat up more when he was on the Marlins, when the trade deadline came, was this package so overwhelming? Like, would this package still be there at the trade deadline? So, like, what was the need to take it? May, like the first week of May. What was the point of taking this package unless it was we're offering this now, you're not going to get this offer again. But so I don't know if they had the confidence that other teams would want Luis Arias, so maybe they just saw the opportunity. They must have been really, pun intended, head over heels for Dylan Head in order to deal Luis Arias.
Oh man,
this early. But the last thing I'll have on it is that with all the relievers getting the closers getting intro songs and walk-offs, I hope that Woo Suck Go one day he becomes great to the point where he's coming out and they play Kurt Angle's theme song and then they start chanting Woo Suck instead of You Suck. That'd be pretty funny. But
I have a quick question for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you were a closing pitcher, what would your walk-in song be?
I think that's a tough one. I mean,
if you don't have an answer now, we could always do this next episode.
Yeah, we're gonna have to revisit this next week because I just got back into watching the new WWE this year and rewatching some of the old ones that I didn't get to see when I was a kid because pay-per-view was actually you had to buy back then instead of on Peacock. So this is something that we're gonna come back to next week, and we're gonna put this question. We'll put this out on Twitter as well as what would
Yeah. It should be a two-parter. What would your closer song be? Which is like you listen, like the whole song plays like while you warm up and shit, and like what your walk-up song is like a batter would be, where it's basically like the first like 30 seconds or like a 30-second clip of the song or like 10 seconds or whatever it is.
Yeah, we're gonna have to revisit that next week because that's good. And I'm really gonna need to ponder on that. But speaking of ponder, as we close out with our final topic of the night and pondering, after the whole Shohei Ohtani situation, Ippei Muzahara is going to have to do a lot of pondering when it comes to his past discretions. And there was a new report that came out today that Muzahara wired Shohei Ohtani stolen funds to Real Housewives star. So apparently, um, one of the according to ESPN, Tisha Thompson, um, a current cast member of Bravo's reality TV series, The Real Housewives of Orange County, Ryan Boyajian was the uh, was one of the people, the associates that Ipe Muzahar was wiring Otani's money to in order to pay down his gambling debts. Um, allegedly, um, allegedly, this guy was one of the associates who who filed a complaint against Muzahara for not being able to, I guess, make his gambling debts under the illegal bookmaker investigation. So it seems like this situation has been getting very, very chaotic. We're going from the biggest star in baseball, who's hitting 370 at this point, and 4 home runs in his last 3 games, to his interpreter, uh, was stealing money from him and sending that money to reality TV stars.
Yeah, the story just keeps getting crazier and crazier. If you had Real Housewives of Orange County somehow, being involved in this on your bingo card, then kudos to you, I guess, because I would have never guessed that in a million years. And I don't know, like the more that comes out about this story and this whole thing, the more I just don't know what to make out of it. Because, I saw today that he's pleading guilty to, you know, uh, the charges or whatever, stealing money. And then this whole thing comes out that that he was paying off gambling debts to this Ryan Boyajin guy. So like it makes me wonder, like like does this mean that maybe, like, does this mean Shohei wasn't gambling? Like, I don't know. Like, I still feel like whatever, I still feel like as far as like Shohei's involvement or like knowledge of it, it was like, you know, is like still kind of I feel like the jury's still out on that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, he'll definitely be doing plenty of pondering in jail, because it appears he will be going there for a pretty long time if he's for the amount of money that he has, allegedly stolen, about $17 million. uh yeah, I don't know, just a crazy story overall that just keeps getting it seems to just keep getting weirder and weirder. But it's not affecting Otani, for what it's worth. I mean, he's been on fire. I think he's hit home runs like 3 out of his last 4 games or something like that. So I mean, it's not affecting his play as far as what he's doing.
Yeah, it definitely kind of reminds me of McCaffrey going to San Francisco 49ers. And so not only, one of the elite talents at a position that like, a lot of people nowadays just plug anyone there. So for example, DH spot, a lot of teams just use that to, they don't even think of it. They don't really look to upgrade it to its fullest potential. So that's how I correlate them to. Same thing with the running back position. But at the same time, too, it's these guys that like you don't. They should be going like top 3 in fantasy every year, but sometimes you're a little bit hesitant because you're like, is this they're going to fall off, or I could just get someone else that's
Yeah.
just as productive. He's a DH, he's a running back, but then they're producing at like MVP levels like every year, no matter what. They're just putting up like the
Yeah, and it's
same
like,
statistics.
yeah, and then it's like, no, you were actually, and that's like, no, you were actually stupid to ever consider taking anyone else first overall.
Yeah, now that I look back at it, it's like, oh, like maybe I should just go with the guy who's in the MVP conversation every single year.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. Also, a little off topic, but relevant to one of the previous topics. But I'm reading this article about Paul Skeens' pitches, and one of them, he has a pitch called a splinker, which I
I guess
guess,
it's a split sinker.
it has it averages like it has like an average velocity of like almost 95 miles an hour, and it's like very low RPMs like a splitter, but I guess it has the speed of a sinker, but it also but it also has that break. So I don't know. The more I'm reading it, it seems like this guy is just gonna be an alien.
I think what I'm going to research before next week's episode is what makes them determine who gets the first part of the name of the pitch. So, for example, like you said, it's a splinker instead of
Sitter.
a sitter, and same thing they call it a was it a
Like a
slurve
slurve instead of
instead of
a
a
collider.
climber.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not really sure how that works. I guess it has to do with I was gonna say I think it would have to do with like the velocity because like I feel like it's called the slurve instead of a collider because it's like slurves are usually like higher velocity, like they usually have similar velocity to a slider, but like this is called the splinker, and it's a pitch that's like almost 95 miles an hour. So like by that logic, I would think it would be a sitter. But yeah, I don't know.
That's like w- uh, the uh, the ghost pitch that Kode Senga throws, except it's a fork ball, but it's
Oh
not a.
yeah, the
It's
ghost
like
fork.
yeah, it's like ghost fork. It's like a splitter with a fork ball, which still to this year I have no idea what a fork ball is because so as we go out on obscure pitching names, do you have any final thoughts before we head out tonight and you take your luxurious B-Day weekend to the West Coast?
Uh, no, not really. I think we covered quite a bit. Definitely excited for the Yankees to hopefully keep the good times rolling. Excited to see what Paul Skeens does. Excited for Christian Scott's second start in the majors. No, I think I don't really have anything else.
All right, so enjoy your trip in Denver. There's going to be
Appreciate it.
we should be having a lot of adventures between the two of us going to ballparks this weekend. We got rivalry weekend for both the Yankees and the Mets. Got some young studs pitching. Um, Besides that, everyone give us a follow at our social media handles below. Thank you once again for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.